Hello, I am about to go see Ben-Hur, which, yeah, sure, it's not getting great reviews, but it's Ben-Hur, which I love. I grew up listening to a radio drama of it, which got me interested in the film, which got me interested in the book, so I love Ben-Hur cross-medium, and even if this film is not very good, I feel an obligation to go see it. So, today's video will be a review of Ben-Hur. Right now, I am feeling like I will be underwhelmed. I try going in with zero expectations, but I feel like the movie will probably just kind of underwhelm me. So we'll see. I'm very interested in the ending because people keep saying they messed it up, but every time they describe it, I'm like, that's the ending from every other Ben-Hur ever. So, we'll see. Guys, it's super bright in here and I can't do anything about it. So we're just going to have to deal with that, okay? I'm glad I recorded that pre-ramble because I want to make sure before I go into this that going into Ben-Hur, I might have had low expectations, but I wasn't expecting to hate it, right? Like, I was maybe thinking it was going to be underwhelming or mediocre, but I wasn't expecting to hate it. This morning in class, we were talking about movies we hate. And I talked about one movie, the only movie I hate. Then I went to see Ben-Hur. That list has now doubled. I hated this movie. Now I have a personal connection with the source material. I love the book. I love this radio drama that I've listened to over and over again. I love the original movie. So there is a personal connection here that has influenced my experience with the movie in a way it wouldn't for others. And I don't want to fault the movie for trying different stuff and taking a different approach with this story. If this movie does anything right, it's that it tries to make a more brotherly relationship between Masala and Judah. But the problem is, this relationship just doesn't work, and by trying to cram in some stuff that wasn't in the book, they're forced to take out things that are kind of important to the story. Like, not stuff that I just find interesting and cool, but like stuff that helps the story operate. I don't really want to get into spoilers for this, but I think I'm gonna have to. So if you care about spoilers, just go. Watch the original, read the book, listen to the radio drama. Okay, so the first big story problem with this movie is that Judah takes in this zealot and is nursing him back to health, and the zealot then shoots an arrow at Pontius Pilate. So the Romans break into his house and they're going to arrest his family, and they're like, who shot the arrow? And he could easily say, it's that guy over there, and get out of trouble. And that would be in his character at this moment. I'm not saying that would be the right thing to do, but that would be in character for him. Beforehand, he talked about, you know, people should look out for themselves and blah, 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 blah. But now he's sacrificing his and his family's life to protect this kid. Doesn't make any sense. Also, what this does is, because he's doing this, there's kind of no reason not to like Masala. And I get that they're trying to make him a more sympathetic character, but the guy I was seeing this with leaned over to me throughout most of the movie and said, yeah, I'm still rooting for this guy. Because there's really no reason to root for Ben-Hur. He doesn't have really any character growth in this, and he wasn't really wrongfully imprisoned. Like, he was, but it's hard to explain without sitting down with the movie, and I have a lot of rage going through me, but it just doesn't work from a thematic standpoint. And Masala did he did the right thing in the wrong way by arresting Judah. It makes sense that he would. The problem is that we're supposed to see what he does as a great betrayal, and while I definitely don't think what he does is right, I can kind of sympathize with it more than I can with Judah, because I don't understand him as a character. Oh boy. Oh boy! Okay. The second big story problem is that Judah is adopted by a leader of the Roman Navy, and he becomes a Roman citizen, and he gets Roman training, and he races for a couple years in the chariot circuit. Because of this, he is a very good charioteer. And this, he knows how to ride a horse. We know this. We've seen that. Okay. But riding a horse and riding a chariot are two completely different things. So, with a week's help from Morgan Freeman, who's completely phoning in this performance, by the way, he's terrible. I never thought I'd say that about Morgan Freeman performance, but he's terrible. There is a scene where you can see him reading his lines off of a cue card or a teleprompter or something. He's awful. Anyway, a week's worth of training from Morgan Freeman is not going to help you against what is established as the undefeated charioteer Masala. That just doesn't make sense. Let's talk about Jesus. Ben-Hur is a tale of the Christ. That's its tagline. That's its subtitle. And what's interesting about that is Jesus usually shows up around 3 times. He shows up when he's born, at the beginning of the film. He shows up to give water to Ben-Hur, and he shows up at his crucifixion. In this, however, they shove him in 15 minutes. They make him a very central character. Now, the reason why it's so cool that he only appears 3 times is because it lets us inform Christ by his effect on Ben-Hur. We get to see his influence through another person. That's really cool. And we get to see his ideals take shape in this person. Besides the fact that Ben-Hur really doesn't have an effective character arc, which is another problem, because he says he's full of hate, but we never see it. And at the beginning of the movie, he's in a pretty good state, so he doesn't really need to grow any. So Jesus is just kind of thrown in there every 15 minutes, and his lines are incredibly forced. The performance is really bad. Every time he shows up, the movie just goes into hyper-dramatic mode, and it's kind of both insulting, not like from a religious perspective, but just from an intelligence perspective. It's very insulting and very, very laughable. People talked about the end of this movie being ridiculous, but I don't know what they were talking about. Yes, it's ridiculous, but the whole movie's ridiculous whenever Jesus shows up on screen. I don't like saying that. This is probably the only time in my life I will say I need a little less Jesus. They throw Jesus into these scenes that he has no reason to be in. They just shove in parts of his life that have nothing to do with the story as a whole, which means at the end, when Ben-Hur sees him, and this is supposed to be Ben-Hur's big character arc in the story, his big turning point, when he sees this sign of forgiveness, it just falls flat. Because up until this point, everything with Jesus has been ridiculous, and so this is ridiculous. On top of that, like I said, Judah doesn't really have a character arc in this. I guess he learned something about forgiveness, but he also kind of learned that beforehand, and I still don't know why he learned that. I get why he's supposed to, and an intelligent viewer can fill in the gaps. But there shouldn't be gaps in this story. The performances are bad. We might get a good side character here and there, and the guy who plays Judah isn't awful. But you know what? Toby Kebbell, who I think is a genuinely good actor who chooses horrible movies, and is usually the best part of those movies, is very bad in this. The person who plays the mother is very bad in this. The guy who plays Jesus is laughable. The guy who plays Pontius Pilate is laughable. Morgan Freeman, as I have previously ranted, is just phoning in this performance. Everything falls flat because of that. The chariot scene is well shot, I guess, but it's extremely choreographed, and it feels like the Hunger Games and not like an actual chariot race. The effects look fake. I don't know how they got away with that in a blockbuster. I guess they're not the worst I've seen, but they're not good. The credits are terrible. I can't believe I'm talking about the credits, but they show up and they're terrible. Usually I would joke that the best thing about this movie is the credits, because that means I get to go home. But no, these credits weren't good. Then there's the whole thing that I don't understand. One, why Masala goes, just starts wailing on the hers. Like, I get what they're supposed to be doing, but it doesn't really work because it's such a shift. And then at the end, you have the exact same shift with him and Ben, where they're just like, or him and Judah, where they're just like, oh, and now we're brothers and we're happy again, even though we have been enemies. This movie cuts out the suspense, and it cuts out the scale, and it cuts out the politics, and it cuts out really what makes this story an epic. And yes, the ending is laughably bad. I don't want to hate this movie. This movie was genuinely painful to get through. I like being very fair and balanced with my reviews, and I like being very rational and keeping my personal connection to the properties of the reviews or the whatever. My own personal connection. I try to remove that as much as possible with the review. I can't do that this time. This movie is terrible. I hate it. It takes something I love and it doesn't ruin it. You can never ruin something like this. I will always have the versions of Ben-Hur that I love, and I will always be able to go to them, and I will always be able to get out of them what I've always been able to get out of them and more. I don't hate this movie because it does this wrong or because it adds this to the story. I hate this movie because I see something that I love and that other people could love, and I see it I see glimpses of it. And ultimately, the experience I had with Ben-Hur when I first listened to it, when I first watched it, when I first read it, people will never be able to have that with this movie. This movie makes me wish that it didn't exist. And like I said, this is not something I have a lot. Movies that I dislike, I just kind of dislike. The Hobbit movies are what I call my Star Wars prequels, because they're the thing to a franchise that I just think is complete garbage. I think the Hobbit movies are trash. But I don't hate them. I'm glad when people say they enjoy them because they can get enjoyment out of cinema, and ultimately that's what I want people to do, is I want people to be able to enjoy cinema and get something out of it. I don't know if that's possible with this movie. And if it is, more power to you. But there is no value I can find in this movie. I've rated it a 1 star because it gets some technical stuff right. The set direction is nice. And I appreciate that they try to do something new. So I can't give it 0. And I wouldn't even tell people not to go see it, because like, this experience I've had is so unique to me. This movie is one of the worst experiences I've had cinematically ever. And you know what? It's not even that bad, I guess. But, and I've said it several times in this review, but I hate it. I genuinely hate it. This is not a fun... This might be a funny review to watch, I don't know. People like seeing people get mad. I hope it is, because I don't think people will enjoy me just hating on a movie. I don't know why you would like that, but... Anyway, so that was my experience with Ben-Hur. If you have seen it and you have opinions, talk about it down below. Yeah. I'm going to go now and edit this because, oh boy, it's midnight. I technically missed. I'm going to count it anyway because I was making the video during the time period. So anyway, I have to go edit this. Bye.